Hare All glories to Sri Guru Venkataraman. Don't talk unnecessarily.
Everybody wants to speak.
You're not supposed to do that in front of the.
Well, we can close the curtains.
I love that. That was an accurate question, actually. What a Christmas festival that was about. You said something like that. Was that what you call it? Yes.
You do this, you do that. You don't talk this and everything.
They're right. The way the Prabhupada wrote it, it made it reading club is what he did this class. I was in a room marathon. His brother is one of the but he said the way the Prabhupada wrote it made it seem like it was like such a frantic scene because Krishna just killed his team and he needed he needed support. Thanks, John.
We can leave off that. That was a good question. We're on chapter 6.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we're on chapter 6.
You got anything there?
Oh, I'll come across the street and I'll come grab you, okay? Give me just a second. All right, bye.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
Introduction prayers on page 1. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sarvabhautam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadhutam Purijanam Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Balan Swayam Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrikavana Sute Devi Pranamami Haripe Vanchakavratavyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Bhagavad Gita class, starting on chapter 6, text 25. We are on page 334 in the big book. Okay. Yeah, 334. Okay, we can start now. Okay. Shana Shana Paraman Buddhyadati Grihitaya Atma Samstan Mana Kritva Nakinchid Apichintayat. Translation. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should be... No, I'm good. I'm good. Thank you, though. Okay. One should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone, and should think of nothing else. Here you go.
Text 26. Yato yato nishchalanti manas chanchalam ashtihiram tatas tato ninyam yatad atmani eva vashyam nayat. Translation: from whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self.
Prasanta manasa hyenam yoginam sukam uttamam upaiti santarajasam brahmabhutam akalmasam. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest happiness. By virtue of his identity with Brahman, he is liberated, his mind is peaceful, his passions are quieted, and he is freed from sin.
Yunjan evam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukhamashnute. Translation: studying the self, being freed from all material contamination, the yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness, in touch with the Supreme Consciousness.
Text 29. Sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani chatmani iksate yoga yukta atma sarvastrasam darshanaha. Translation: a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere.
Text 30. Yamam pashyati sarvatra sarvam chamai pashyati tasyam panashyami sachanena panashyati. Translation: for one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me.
Text 31. Sarvam bhutasitam yomam bhajati iktatvam ashita sarvata vartamanopi sayogi mayi varate. Translation: the yogi who knows that I am the super soul within all creatures are one. Yogi who knows that I and the super soul within all creatures are one, worships me and remains always in me in all circumstances.
Atma upamyena sarvatra samam pashyati arjuna sukham vayari va dukkam sayogi paramo mataha. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and distress, O Arjuna.
Arjuna vacha yoyam yogastvaya prokta samyena madhusudana etyaham etasyam apashyami chanchalatvat sthitam sthiram. Translation: Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and undurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady.
Text 34. Sanchalam hi mana Krishna parmati balavadaridram tasyanam nigrahame Vayur iva sudashkaram. Translation: for the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it seems to me more difficult than controlling the wind.
Text 35. Shri Vacha Chalam Abhyasena Takunteya Vairakena Chagrihyate. Translation: The Blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. Returning to text 25.
Text 25, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Gradually, step by step, with full conviction, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone and should think of nothing else. Purport. By proper conviction and intelligence, one should gradually cease sense activities. This is called pratyahara. The mind being controlled by conviction, meditation, and cessation of the senses should be situated in trance or samadhi. At that time, he is no longer in any danger of becoming engaged in material conception of life. In other words, although one is involved with matter as long as the material body exists, one should not think about sense gratification. One should think of no pleasure aside from the pleasure of the Supreme Self. This state is easily attained by directly practicing Krishna consciousness.
Text 26. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Purport. The nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized yogi has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called Goswami or Swami, and one who is controlled by the mind is called Godasa or the servant of the senses. A Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Hrishikesha or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice.
Text 27. Translation. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest happiness. By virtue of his identity with Brahman, he is liberated, his mind is peaceful, his passions are quieted, and he is freed from sin. Purport. Brahma Bhuta is a state of being free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. Bhagavad Gita 18.54. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the Absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord. Savai Mana Krishna Padala Vindayo. To be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Krishna consciousness, is to be factually liberated from the mode of passion and all material contamination.
Text 28, translation. Study in the self, begin free from all material contamination, the yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. Purport. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship to the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the Supreme is called Brahma Samsparsha.
Text 29. A true yogi observes me in all beings, and also sees every being in me. Indeed, The self-realized man sees me everywhere. Purport. A Krishna-conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the Supreme, situated in everyone's heart as Supersoul, Paramatma. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshi Arjuna Tishtati. The Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahmana. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahmana. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the supersoul. One who is not factually in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. A Krishna-conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and non-believer. In the Smriti, this is confirmed as follows. Atat tat twach chamatritwad atma hi paramo harihi. The Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the Supersoul is always in every living being. Outwardly, also, every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord, as will be explained in the 7th chapter. The Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual or superior and the material or inferior. The living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in Him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations according to the results of fruitive work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. While in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and while in spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness.
Text 30. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he lost to me. Purport. A person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instance, he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to material liberation. It is the stage beyond self-realization at which the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity attains his immortality, nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of sight of the devotee. To merge in Krishna is a spiritual annihilation. A devotee takes no such risk. It's stated in the Brahma Samhita, Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilokchana Chena Shanta Sadeva Harayayashu Vilokayanti Yam Seyam Asunadram Achintya Gunya Swayurupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bahajami. I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotees, whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He is seen in his internal form of Shamashundra, situated within the heart of the devotee. At this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee. Nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In this case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, the same applies, such as a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself.
Text 31. The yogi who knows that I and the Supersoul within all creatures are one worships me and remains always in me in all circumstances. Purport. A yogi who is practicing meditation on the Supersoul sees within himself the plenary portion of Krishna as Vishnu, with 4 hands, holding conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogi should know that Vishnu is not different from Krishna. Krishna in this form of Supersoul is situated in everyone's heart. Furthermore, there is no difference between the innumerable supersouls present in the innumerable hearts of living entities, nor is there a difference between a Krishna-conscious person always engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the supersoul. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in material existence, remains always situated in Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami, Nikaleshu avastasu jivan mukta uchite. A devotee of the Lord always acting in Krishna consciousness is automatically liberated. In the Narada Pancharatra, this is confirmed in this way. Dikaladya navachine Krishne cheto vidhaya cha tanmayo bhavati kshipram jivo brahmani yojayat. By concentrating one's attention on the transcendental form of Krishna, who is all-pervading and beyond time and space, one becomes absorbed in thinking of Krishna and then attains the happy state of transcendental association with him. Krishna consciousness is the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. This very understanding that Krishna is present as Paramatma in everyone's heart makes the yogi faultless. The Vedas confirm this inconceivable potency of the Lord as follows. Ekopi san bahudya yo vapati aishvarayad rupam ekam cha suryavad bad bahud heyate. Vishnu is one, and yet he is certainly all-pervading. By his inconceivable potency, in spite of his one form, he is present everywhere. As the sun, he appears in many places at once.
Text 32. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and distress. O Arjuna. Purport. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God, and the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being. Krishna is the proprietor of all lands and planets. The perfect yogi is a sincere friend of all living entities. He knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. Because one is Krishna conscious, is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Atasmat kashid me priyachikir priyakritamaha. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities, and in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his material benefit, but he tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. He is a contrast between the pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. A yogi who has withdrawn to the secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man towards Krishna consciousness.
Text 33, translation. Arjuna said, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and endurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Purport. The system of mysticism described by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, beginning with the words Suchau Dese and ending with Yogi Paramaha, is here being rejected by Arjuna out of a feeling of inability. It is not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and go to secluded place in the mountains or jungles to practice yoga in this age of Kali. The present age is characterized by bitter struggles for a life of short duration. People are not serious about self-realization even by simple practical means, and what to speak of this difficult yoga system, which regulates the mode of living, the manner of sitting, selection of place, and detachment of the mind from material engagements. As a practical man, Arjuna thought it was impossible to follow this system of yoga, even though he was favorably endowed in many ways. He belonged to the royal family and was highly evaluated in terms of numerous qualities. He was a great warrior, he had great longevity, and above all, he was the most intimate friend of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 5,000 years ago, Arjuna had better facilities than we do now, yet he refused to accept this system of yoga. In fact, we do not find any record in history of his practicing it at any time. Therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in this age of Kali. Of course, it may be possible for some very few rare men, but for the people in general, it is an impossible proposal. If this were so 5,000 years ago, then what of the present day? Those who are imitating this yoga system is different so-called schools and societies, although complacent, are certainly wasting their time. They are completely in ignorance of the desired goal.
Text 34. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the wind. Purport. The mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence. Although mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence, for a man in the practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium toward both friend and enemy, but ultimately, no worldly man can do so, for this is more difficult than controlling the raging wind. In the Vedic literatures it is said, Atmana Ratinam Vidhi Shariya Ratam Eva Cha Buddhim Tu Saratin Vidhi Mana Pragraham Eva Cha Indriyani Hayanaho Vishayam Teshu Kocharan Atmindriya Mano Yukto Bhakti Tyaho Manishinaha. Translation. The individual is the passenger in the car of the material body, and intelligence is the driver. Mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer in the association of the mind and senses. So it is understood by great thinkers. Intelligence is supposed to direct the mind. the mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes even one's own intelligence. Such a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by the practice of yoga, but such practice is never practical for a worldly person like Arjuna. And what can we say of modern man? The simile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind, and it is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. The easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance, in all humility. The method prescribed is Savayamana Krishna Padada Vindayoho. One must engage one's mind fully in Krishna. Only then will there remain no other engagements to agitate the mind.
Text 35. The Blessed Lord said, O mighty Aram, son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. Purport. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. It is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe strict rules and regulations, such as placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses in the mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in the 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is very powerful. One hears about Krishna, this is very powerful. Transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can easily learn Vairagya. What? Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind and spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than hearing about Krishna. My eyes keep moving. Yeah, more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities. Where I go? I keep losing my spot here. Print small. Where was I? It is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called parishanubhuti, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction of a hungry man who has for every morsel of food he eats. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and an appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activity of the Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna as the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness.
Text 36. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work, but he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead declares that one who does not accept the proper treatment to detach the mind from material engagement can hardly achieve success in self-realization. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. Similarly, yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a show of yoga practice may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Therefore, the mind must be controlled by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. A Krishna-conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor, but a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna-conscious.
Text 37. Arjuna said, "What is the destination of a man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism?" Purport. The path of self-realization or mysticism is described in the Bhagavad Gita. The basic principle of self-realization is knowledge that the living entity is not this material body, but that he is different from it and that his happiness is in eternal life, bliss and knowledge. These are transcendental, beyond body and mind. Self-realization is sought by the path of knowledge, the practice of the Eightfold System, or by Bhakti Yoga. In each of these processes, one has to realize the constitutional position of the living entity, his relationship with God, and the activities thereby he can re-establish the lost link and achieve the highest perfection stage of Krishna consciousness. Following any of the above mentioned three methods, one is sure to reach the supreme goal sooner or later. This was asserted by the Lord in the second chapter. Even a little endeavor on the transcendental path offers a great hope for deliverance. Out of these three methods, the path of Bhakti Yoga is especially suitable for this age because it is the most direct method of self-realization. To be doubly assured, Arjuna is asking Lord Krishna to confirm his former statement. One may sincerely accept the path of self-realization, but the process of cultivation of knowledge and the practice of the Eightfold Yoga system are generally very difficult for this age. Therefore, despite constant endeavor, one may fail for many reasons. First of all, one may not be following the process. To pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on illusory energy. Consequently, whenever a person tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements. A conditioned soul is already allured by the modes of material energy, and there is every chance of being allured again, even while performing transcendental disciplines. This is called yoga Chalita Manasa, deviation from the transcendental path. Arjuna is inquisitive to know the results of deviation from the path of self-realization.
Text 38, translation. O mighty armed Krishna, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, perish like a raven cloud with no position in any sphere? Purport. There are two ways to progress. Those who are materialists have no interest in transcendence, therefore they are more interested in material advancement by economic development or in promotion to the higher planets by appropriate work. When one takes to the path of transcendence, one has to cease all material activities and sacrifice all forms of so-called material happiness. If the aspiring transcendentalist fails, then he apparently loses both ways. In other words, he can enjoy neither material happiness nor spiritual success. He has no position. He is like a raven cloud. A cloud in the skies sometimes deviates from a small cloud and joins a big one. But if it cannot join a big one, then it is blown away by the wind and becomes a non-entity in the vast sky. The Brahmana Pati is the past of transcendental realization through knowing oneself to be spiritual in essence, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan. Lord Sri Krishna is the fullest manifestation of the Supreme Absolute Truth, and therefore one who is surrendered to the Supreme Person is a successful transcendentalist. To reach this goal of life, through Brahman and Paramatma, realization takes many births. Bahunam Janmanam Ante. Therefore, the supermost of transcendental realization is Bhakti Yoga or Krishna consciousness, the direct method.
Text 39, translation. This is my doubt, O Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for yourself, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Purport. Krishna is the perfect knower of past, present, and future. In the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said that all living entities exist individually in the past, that they exist now in the present, and that they continue to retain individual identity in the future, even after liberation from the material entanglement. So he has already cleared up the question of the future of the individual living entity. Now, Arjuna wants to know of the future of the unsuccessful transcendentalists. No one is equal to or above Krishna, and certainly the so-called great sages and philosophers who are at the mercy of material nature cannot equal him. Therefore, the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts, because he knows past, present, and future perfectly, but no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.